The point of peak romance is this. It's the point at which your business has got a lot of stored potential, a lot of potential energy in it. It really could go somewhere. Oh boy, this could be something. But on the other hand, it still might not.
Hey everyone, this is Nazar Akil from Max Pro.
Hi, I'm Linda.
And I'm Paul.
And we're 11 Pebbles.
Hi, this is Lopa Vandermersch from Rasa.
Oh, you're listening.
And you are listening to the Ecomm Show.
Welcome to the Ecom Show, presented by BlueTuskr, the #1 place to hear the inside scoop from other e-commerce experts, where they share their secrets on how they scaled their business and are now living the dream. Now, here is your host, Andrew Math.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Ecom Show. I'm your host, Andrew Math. Today, I'm joined by the amazing Ben Leonard, who is the former owner of BlueTuskr, now currently going through Ben Leonard Pro, Ecom Brokers. He's doing so much stuff on the Ecom side, so obviously we wanted to have him on the show. Ben, how are you doing? You ready for a good show?
I'm doing really well. Thanks. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you joining us. I always like to do the very stereotypical thing where we pretend that no one knows who you are, and you kind of give us a little bit of your background on how you got to where you are now, where you were in the past, and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got into e-commerce in 2016. Big change from my previous life, if you want to call it that. I was an environmental scientist in the oil and gas industry. I live close to an oil town, Aberdeen, in the northeast of Scotland. And I was the dolphin guy who had to tell the engineers that they weren't allowed to throw chemicals in the ocean. And I really enjoyed my job. And then I got really sick with a heart condition. And I'm absolutely fine now, but I had to take some time off work and, crucially for me, time off my fitness hobbies, which were, that was my outlet. So I was miserable. I started a fitness brand as a hobby, honestly, really as a hobby to keep myself occupied. And at that point, not even with e-commerce in mind, I wanted to sell my products to gyms. And fast forward 3 years, the business was doing $6 million in sales, and I sold it. And it was Thrasio's first European acquisition.
Yeah.
And my life took another change. I had a lucky escape from a not very good broker, so created a better brokerage with my accountant. And now I'm still building brands, which I enjoy, and I love that. I'm a brand builder at heart. I'm helping others to plan and execute their exit. And I'm doing a bit of consulting and talking to people about it like this.
Nice. Wow. So that's a very interesting story. So let's start with the Ecom side, with where you'd started. Obviously, sure. Crazy situation, but how did you scale that to 6 million? You said, right?
Yeah,
6 million, 3 years. That's usually
it would have been it was about 3.5. Yeah. Well, call it 3.25.
All right, 3 and some change. That's still nuts. That's not it's not really a common thing. You find most e-commerce sellers, depending on what they're doing, unless something goes viral or something like that, it takes a long time to even clear that 7-figure range. What is it that kind of helped you differentiate your brand?
Well, I was a brand first, sell stuff on the internet second guy, and I still am. And there were things to my disadvantage, which in some ways worked to my advantage. So my disadvantage was I had no business background, no business degree, no product development experience, no marketing experience. When I first had my idea to launch a fitness brand, and that was my idea, right? Launch a fitness brand, not sell stuff on the internet. I didn't even know I was going to sell on the internet. I thought I'd sell them to gyms. It was whilst I was developing the first product that I became aware that selling on Amazon was a thing. I thought when you bought something on Amazon, you were buying it from Jeff. And I didn't know, I knew that people built websites and sold their stuff on their website, but I didn't know the first thing about it. And I didn't know there were platforms for idiots like me, like Shopify, to help me do it. And so the disadvantage of that was, of course, I knew nothing. The advantage was I was very naive, and so I wasn't scared. And because I had a science background, I was able to apply that scientific approach of learn by doing. Have a hypothesis, try it, see what happens, analyze what happens, tweak what you do, and go again. And that meant that quite quickly I was able to figure out what worked and what didn't work. And my naivety meant that I was not scared to have a go and give things a try. And the circumstances I found myself in of being sick with very little to do meant that it gave me something to get my teeth into. And then the whole way through, I zigged where everyone else zagged. I made myself an averagely fit, normal guy, the face of a fitness brand. And I treated it as a brand rather than trying to find the latest hack to get ahead on Amazon. And so that pushed me ahead of competitors who weren't thinking about brand. They were just selling stuff.
Yeah.
And that approach saw me through.
There you go. Yeah, say so that was, you said you started in 2016. So through pre-pandemic, yeah, it was very much like just sell product. No one was really focused on brand building or anything along those lines, or at least not many. So when you say you were a brand first before you started selling product, there's usually two things that I think about when you say that is either A, you kind of went like the media direction. So you do pumping out a ton of content and you're kind of always talking about it, or B, which can also kind of be both, you have more of like the influencer side. So which was it, one of those that you were kind of building the brand first before you launched your own product?
So it was all about building a brand identity and a brand for me. Like I felt like there was no brand for me. Like fitness is a very elitist world.
Yeah, it is.
Brands appeal to the people who are the fittest, the strongest, the fastest, the thinnest, the muscliest. And I created a brand that said, you're all welcome. If you're going to be the next heavyweight champion of the world, you're welcome. If you're really overweight and you're trying to do a couch to 5K and improve your health, you're also welcome. I'm an asthmatic, averagely fit, normal dude, and I'm the face of the brand. Anyone can set some goals, and if you get after them, you're a beast. Welcome to our tribe. We're beast gear, right? That was the message, and it worked. And I call it micro agility, the ability of small, nimble businesses on a laptop in a spare room to outmaneuver the big boys with these nimble marketing strategies, like one-to-one relationship building in WhatsApp and Instagram DMs. That was the approach. And then, yeah, we had influencers, but they were mostly normal people.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, we created content, helpful, free, engaging, useful, valuable information that makes people know, like, and trust us. Classic Gary Vaynerchuk, jab, 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 right hook stuff. But I was doing that before I'd read jab, 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 right hook. It just made sense to me. Well, if I'm going to have a fitness brand, I better have some fitness information. So I started writing about it.
Beautiful. And it's genius that you were able to find a hole in the market. It's a very good point. Like I've worked with fitness brands all the time, and it's always like, who's the biggest, most jacked guy we can get pictures of with the product on? And it's actually a very good point. I never even thought about that. So let's jump forward a little bit. I'm always really interested in when I hear an e-commerce seller that has exited and kind of gets a little bit more into like the service side or helping other sellers, but you did kind of figure out, the magic on the e-commerce side. What made you want to get into, starting, kind of getting into more or less like consulting side? And then you obviously have e-com brokers. Like what made you get into that as opposed to either A, continuing to grow Beast Gear, or B, starting a different e-com business?
Yeah, great question. So I decided not to continue to grow Beast Gear because it was the right time for me and my family to move on. I'd become aware how valuable the business could be. My wife was pregnant. We wanted to move house. And it was, I talk about this sometimes. It's kind of a wishy-washy definition of when to sell. And a lot of people don't like it, but I love it. So some advice I received when I was thinking about selling Beast Gear was to sell the business at the point of peak romance. Some people will roll their eyes and say, that sounds very wishy-washy to me. It's not very numbers-oriented, is it, Ben? Now, don't get me wrong, the numbers matter a lot. But the point of peak romance is this. It's the point at which your business has got a lot of stored potential, a lot of potential energy in it. It really could go somewhere. Oh boy, this could be something. But on the other hand, it still might not. So there's this romantic notion that it could go somewhere. That means that it's quite attractive to a buyer because there's a lot of growth opportunities. But at the same time, if you sell it and it doesn't quite achieve that potential, then you got out at the right time. Yeah. So that's kind of why we sold Beast Gear. So then why the consulting and why the brokerage? Well, I felt somewhat responsible to pass on my knowledge because the space was and still is awash with slimy gurus posing in front of fast cars who actually don't know what they're talking about and are peddling lies and ridiculously priced courses. And I was trying to say, here's how you actually do it from someone who's actually been there and done it.
Yeah.
And then with the brokerage, it was the classic entrepreneurial scratch your own itch. The experience I had with the broker I used and managed to, the situation was resolved in the end thanks to Alison, my accountant. We said to each other, clearly we can improve on this experience. So we created a better brokerage, which as a happy side effect is better for sellers and buyers. And so that's why we went into that. It was like the obvious opportunity to solve a problem that existed in the space.
Nice. And I'm assuming the brokerage side, because you mentioned this earlier, was you had some kind of issue with a broker. Am I correct?
Yeah. So the service I used was not very bespoke, or I was recommended it by a friend who'd sold 2 businesses through them.
Mm-hmm.
And using it's one of these, I'm not going to name them, but it's one of these popular sites that lists businesses for sale. They relegate your business to nothing more than a garlic press on eBay. And they don't do very much else. A lot of it is automated. A lot of it is outsourced. And it turns out the guy crunching my numbers was a recent graduate with a history of art degree who'd been trained how to pull some reports from Amazon and slam in a Google sheet. Not qualified to do it at all. And their business model is get lots and lots of deal flow in and just get it sold fast.
Yeah.
And that's appropriate if you're flipping like an affiliate site or something, but not for a grown-up physical products business. But unfortunately, in 2019, there weren't that many options.
Mm-hmm.
And they made a catalog of errors, one of which, after the business had gone right through their QA process, they were ready to sell it and present it to buyers, had made a crucial calculation error, which would have undervalued the business by something like £300,000. What's that? $500,000? So after I knew something wasn't right, and Alison looked at it, we figured out what had gone wrong, and I went back to them and was able to negotiate down their commission. And even at their lower commission, they still made more money as a result of us finding their error than they would have done, right? And fortunately, we got everything ironed out and the deal went through. And so then Alison and I said to each other, well, we can improve on that. Alison's an accountant and specializes in e-commerce, and she's got like 30 years mergers and acquisitions experience. I understand how to develop a physical e-products brand from product development through to marketing. So why not put those skills together and actually have a brokerage that understands both sides of the equation? So we did.
Beautiful. I've had one of those. I had someone on our show a while back that was the founder. I think he was the founder. If not, he was definitely the CEO of one of those sites. I'm hoping it wasn't him.
Well, the thing is, I don't have anything personally against those services per se. Like when they came to exist to serve a different niche. They came to exist to serve selling blogs and affiliate sites and that type of thing. And in many ways, that service is kind of appropriate for that. But they've branched out into selling real businesses without offering the necessary level of service and skill level required.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's right. And sellers deserve a bit better than that.
I would agree with that. So you were, and you mentioned you were Thrasio's first European acquisition, correct?
Yeah. Back in the day, yeah. I mean, I say back in the day, right? It's not a long time ago. So the deal was closed. This is funny. The deal was closed Halloween 2019, which is just a couple of days ago in terms of like anniversary. It's like 3-year anniversary. 3 years in e-commerce years, though, is like dog years, right? So it's a long time ago now.
All right. So now I'm sure your time's a little bit split, but are you more focused on the Ben Leonard Pro side, or are you more focused on e-com brokers, or is it pretty much split?
Well, the good news is that an important lesson I learned is about partnering. So everything I do is partnering now. So Ecom brokers, my co-founder is Alison. We have a deal director, John, who sits in Chicago. He's great because he's actually ex-Amazon and ex-Forum brands who are a big aggregator. So he kind of understands. He brings another side to our understanding. And then in my brands, I own a baby brand and a boxing brand, and I have equity in several other brands that I advise. So I'm either in advisory roles or co-founder roles And I'm able, therefore, to focus on working with others who are better than me at my weak points. And I can focus on the parts that I'm best at, which is the brand and the vision and that type of thing, and the marketing side. And therefore, I'm not overburdened. The Ben Leonard Pro thing, that is my consulting. I really have one or two big corporate clients, and I'm doing less of the individual mentorship now. We kind of brought that into Ecom brokers to mentor people through to their exit. But so yeah, my website's Ben Leonard Pro, but that's really just where I kind of park my. I hate this phrase, but I have to use it because it's what you use. My personal brand, right?
Yeah.
Positioning myself as someone in the space who knows what they're talking about. Well, hopefully.
Yeah. I get it. I got one.
Yeah.
I hate doing it too.
You kind of have to have one.
Your comment of the guru is like giving advice standing in front of like super expensive cars. Flawless. I've seen way too many of those, like standing in front of a Tesla and just having some random like, what you need to do is grow a community. And they're like, end of video. And I'm like,
it's so frustrating. The funny ones are though when they get called out. Like there was one recently where the person had taken a photograph of themselves in front of a private jet. They'd clearly just like opportunistically managed to get onto this airfield. They put like a doormat branded with their brand in front of the door of the jet, but the steps weren't down, and the cover, like the protective rain cover or whatever, was on the engine, so it wasn't going anywhere. They weren't about to board this jet. It was clear, so obviously not their jet. It was really funny, and all the comments were like calling it out. I loved it.
that's ridiculous. Oh, those guys drive me crazy. So all right, so on the kind of consulting side, what would you, when you kind of get involved with brands and you're kind of giving them insight on suggestions, things like that, what do you have as like what is your differentiator? What's your like kind of story or thing that you work with them on the most?
So, and I've been trying to bang this drum for several years now. It's still all about brand. So many people are still, they're and it's not their fault because it's the narrative that's out there. But they've bought into this short-termist idea of trying to hack their way to success and use this software to find this gap and then launch a product to fill that gap and make some money, rather than develop a brand that solves problems for a particular group of people, provide value to them so that they will like your brand and love your brand and buy your products to support their interest, profession, whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm trying to encourage people to do, is to build a sustainable brand that isn't just stuff on Amazon or stuff on a website that you drive Facebook ads to, but looks and feels and behaves like a legit CPG brand. I have to say to people, being a brand is not only for the big guns. It's not only for Nike. You have a brand too, and you need to treat it with self-respect by treating it like a real brand. It's kind of like, Pinocchio wanted to be a real boy. E-commerce business owners should aspire to have a real brand.
Yeah.
And that's what matters when it comes to an exit now, is you could sell like a really crappy e-commerce business. It was basically just an Amazon account selling stuff. A couple of years ago, you could sell it for actually quite a high multiple. But now you really need to have a business that is represented by a real brand identity that has everything you would expect from a real brand. So, if you're listening, ask yourself, what's your favorite brand related to your hobby or your job, or your favorite brand related to the food products in your cupboards? What do they do? How do they look and they feel and behave? What do they have? What content do they produce? What social media assets do they have? Go do all that as it relates to your business, and you'll be doing a heck of a lot better than the people that are still stuck in the 2017 mindset are.
Yeah. You are on the exact same page with that. Like I've been preaching this for years, especially with Amazon sellers, where they do well on Amazon. I'm not a big fan of the ones that kind of like you mentioned, where they're just selling random products, and it's like very difficult to build a brand around that. But the ones that are like have a private label, they've got some product that's relatively differentiated and branded. I like to help them like start to develop brands off of Amazon and start to actually turn it into a brand. And because of exactly what you just said, is the multiple that they get when they exit when they have a community that they can reach like at any moment, or, you know, they have a big email list or a big social media following or something along those lines, they almost always tend to get a significantly higher multiple than if they're just peddling product on Amazon. Is that more or less what you're?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And this is an example I regularly give is people will say, "Oh yeah, but Ben, it's if I just game the algorithm and get ranking and optimize my PPC on Amazon for these products, in a couple of years I'll have enough profit that I can sell, and that's good enough, right?" Well, no, because buyers and investors backing buyers will not put up with that anymore. And even if a buyer will buy it, they won't pay a particularly high multiple. And somebody might say, well, that's good enough for me, right? But hold on a sec. If you take two businesses in the same niche, one of which is really just kind of selling stuff, and one of which is selling almost the same stuff, but with a fantastic brand identity and everything that goes along with that, and legions of raving fans on Instagram and TikTok on your email list who will buy your stuff again and again and again, the multiple for the real brand is that much higher. So you're going to get more money when you sell, but then think about this. Suppose you have a 500,000 business and the great brand is able to sell it at 5x and the less good brand is able to sell it at 3x, right? So that's $1 million difference at exit.
Yeah.
Now that's a lot of money. But what happens if you invest that $1 million in a low, medium risk stocks and shares portfolio that grows at 6, 7, 8%? Well, 5 years later, that's even more money. And 10 years later, that's even more and even more money thanks to compounding. Mm-hmm. So people need to think about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. You clear that, like $3 or $4 million mark, and you start making 6 figures a year just sitting on your feet, sitting on your
Totally.
hands.
I mean, you only need to sell your business for $1 million and some change, and technically you could retire. It'd be pretty boring.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could.
Yeah. It's very interesting. So what's your philosophy on building a brand if you are solely focused on Amazon? Because I find that to be incredibly challenging.
My philosophy is do not solely focus on Amazon.
Solid philosophy.
So
like
even if, and it's okay, people will say, yeah, but Ben, I've tried it and 95% of my sales are on Amazon. Not a problem. Absolutely fine. Provided you have got the other channels. Because if you have built a legit brand, yes, your customers who are going back to buy more from you are going back to Amazon, and new customers are going to Amazon, but they will be checking out your website and they'll be checking out your social media and all that good stuff, and they'll be getting on your email list. And they will not be looking on Amazon for widget X. They'll be looking for your brand. And if something bad happens, like you get suspended or your product is suspended, not everyone, of course, because many people value the ease with which they can buy on Amazon, but a decent proportion of them will then hunt you down where they can buy you. Yeah. That de-risks the business to a potential buyer, which pushes your multiple up, pushes the amount that somebody's willing to pay for it. So my advice is don't focus only on Amazon. Be on Amazon, be on your own website, and be on other channels that make sense where your customers will be. So if your customers are on Walmart, go on Walmart. If it makes sense for you to be on Faire or Tundra, go on there. And if you're international and you're selling in the UK and Europe, for instance, then be on omni-channel, be on other marketplaces. Cdiscount in France, Allegro in Poland, Bol in the Netherlands. All of these things. It's too easy to do. The tools to allow you to do it and the services to allow you to do it. There's no excuse not to do it. And that's my philosophy.
Yeah. I mean, it makes total sense. I mean, there's also, you have the business health side of just being able to diversify. So kind of like you mentioned, if you get suspended off Amazon, at least you're not immediately shutting your doors. But then even outside of that, we've always taken an omni-channel approach because years ago, I actually was just sitting at home watching my wife shop, and she would go onto a website, see if she liked what they were selling, and she would, if they didn't have a lot of reviews, she would go and see if they were available on Amazon to read the reviews. And since she'd get it in a couple of days, she would probably order on Amazon. Yep. But then she would also do the opposite, where she'd shop on Amazon and find something that she's interested in, but she wants to make sure that it's a legitimate business. So she would leave Amazon and Google it. And if they didn't have a website, or if they did have a website and it looked like crap, she wouldn't shop with them. So
Exactly.
I realized like there's so much fluidity with the customer on where they're interested in shopping that you have to have like your brand aesthetic, your brand voice needs to be nailed across every channel that your customer could potentially be because they're there judging you.
100%. And it's interesting because there's that kind of general shopping behavior that you've just spoken about there, checking all the different channels and the reviews and all that stuff, seeing if it seems legit. That's kind of more of a general shopping behavior. But then you have niche specific behavior. So if you are selling fishing products because you have a fishing brand, you need to make sure that your brand is present where people into fishing are, but also that there's social proof within the fishing community from the right people and on the right forums and on the right Reddits and Discord groups and wherever they hang out, that legitimizes your brand. So if your competitors on Amazon are doing that and they're appearing on the right fish forum and you're not, even if you think you've got everything optimized on Amazon, it's your competitors who are more legit in the eyes of a fishing fan who are going to get the sale and subsequently get that conversion boost and the ranking boost, and the flywheel will spin faster for them and not for you, and they will win and you will not.
Yep. Beautiful. Ben, we could do this all day. Really appreciate having on the show. I know you're super busy. I'd love to obviously give the opportunity here, let everyone know where they can find out more about you and Ecom Brokers and obviously Ben Leonard Pro and any other brands. Like, have at it. This is your moment.
Yeah, love to. If you want to learn how to plan your exit, and you cannot do that too early, even if you don't think you're going to sell for a couple of years, ecombrokers.co.uk, click the big yellow button. If you want to see something funny and how we make something pretty boring into something very funny, go to ecombrokers.co.uk/movie. It'll only take a few minutes of your time. I promise it's hilarious. And if you want to contact me, email me, ben@ecombrokers.co.uk. And I'm on all the main social media channels. I'm on LinkedIn, Ben Leonard. My handle everywhere is Ben Leonard Pro. We're on YouTube. We've got a podcast, Ecomm Made Easy, Exits Made Easy. There you go. That's a lot of plugs. I'll leave it there.
You've got a ton of content out there. Beautiful. Ben, really appreciate you having on the show. Obviously, everyone that tuned in, thank you as well. Please make sure you do the usual rate, review, subscribe, all that fun stuff on whichever podcast platform you want, or head over to ecommshow.com. You can check out all of our past episodes there as well. But as usual, thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you for tuning in to the Ecomm Show. Head over to ecommshow.com to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform or on the BlueTuskr YouTube channel. The Ecomm Show is brought to you by BlueTuskr, a full-service digital marketing company specifically for e-commerce sellers looking to accelerate their growth. Go to BlueTuskr.com now for more information. Make sure to tune in next week for another amazing episode of The Ecomm Show.